Dear viewers, welcome to this YouTube channel. In this chapter, there will be an explanation of Dignities of the Planets, as follows. The explanation describes the contents which appeared in the previous chapters, but more specifically it describes them in more details. Since the basic birth horoscope chapter has been explored, this chapter will go into further details. If they are mentioned too early, they might lead to confusion because there are too many details for a new learner. When each planet has transited into a particular house, it will have an uncommon dignity that could either be positive or negative impact on different areas. For instance, Domicile, Exaltation, Pre-Exaltation, Post-Exaltation, Maha Chakra, Chula Chakra, Raja Yoga, Devi Yoga, Detriment, Debilitation as well as domicile switching will have different effects. Therefore, the predicting outcome will have additional and developed details. The details are considered complicated yet well organized and have clearly defined steps. This is comparable to computer programs that work systematically and in following orders. As a consequence, when a planet is located in a certain house, the meanings of the house will be combined with the meanings of the planet. Therefore, it will become more complicated since it is not just about the dignities of the planets that has been studied earlier. Nevertheless, it can be explained with predefined steps which will be mentioned as follows. Domicile dignity. Domicile, or own house, has a meaning of gradual and steadfast abundance. It will yield result in a slow but steady manner. When a planet has domicile dignity, its meaning can then be combined with slow but steady, in every area, context and case. They can be categorized into two cases as follows. 1. Planet with domicile dignity in domicile context. 1.1. Ascendant conjoined planet with domicile dignity. A certain planet that has domicile dignity will affect the native, Tonu, to have a strong horoscope. Life will eventually become successful and stable at last. Even though there are sicknesses, they will not be too severe and are recoverable. Life will gradually become successful and stable. It will take time to become an authoritative figure, to achieve a high rank within an organization, or to become highly recognized. It will usually be almost at retirement age to achieve them. However, every native has to begin with her own original background. Some of them may begin from nothing while some of them may begin from a high social status. Eventually they will become well-to-do people, but at a different level and status. In other words, they may end up being in a different financial status despite the gradual growth. Only the meanings of domicile is considered without including the meanings of the planet. 1.2. Planet with domicile dignity in other bhavas. No matter what planet it is, when it has domicile dignity, the house it is in will gradually become strong and stable. For instance, a planet has domicile dignity in Kadampa Bhava will make the native becomes gradual wealthy. The older the native gets, the richer she becomes. In case the planet is in Patni Bhava, it indicates that the relation with the partner or business partner will gradually become more stable and better. A long-term partnership should be formed when conducting a business with someone, since the relationship will grow stronger with time. Used only domicile meanings without considering the meanings of the planet. **** ruling planet that has domicile dignity and is located in another bhava indicates that the bhava will also be strengthened according to the meaning of domicile. 2. Planet with domicile dignity in planet context. 2.1. Ruling planet conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context, the meanings will be affected. Saturn, 7, has domicile dignity and conjoined with the ascendant. The meanings in Saturn's context are careful consideration, lands, farming, hard labors, etc. This can be interpreted as the older the native becomes, the more consideration she will have. Concerning the lands, it could be interpreted as if the native is fortunate, in conjunction with the ascendant, in lands, gardening and farming. It will be worthwhile in the long run since they will become very secure at the end, lands. Moreover, there is still another interpretation which indicates that the lands will become more valuable and attractive later on, even though they were only ordinary lands at the beginning. What they have turned into must be interpreted by checking other factors and bhavas. The Sun, 1, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies honor, dignity and pride. In the beginning the native may behave normally, but the older she gets, the more arrogant and aloof she becomes. The Moon, 2, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies sweetness and charm. In the beginning the native possesses these traits in general. Though the older she gets, the more adaptable, sweet and charming she becomes. Mars, 3, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies diligence, craftsmanship, logic, distrustfulness and stubbornness. In the beginning the native possesses these traits in general. Though the more experienced she becomes, the more prominent these traits become. With reasons. Mercury, 4, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies thoroughness, being negotiation, and detail-oriented. In the beginning the native possesses these traits in general. Though the older she gets, the more prominent these traits become. Mercury, 4, conjoined with the ascendant implies a talkative and negotiation person. Jupiter, 5, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies virtue, honesty and being optimistic, soft-hearted, ethical, trustful. Normally the native has these traits, but the older she gets, the more prominent these traits become. May become misled by morality, indulged in donation or easily tricked because of being too naive, soft-hearted and kind. Venus, 6, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies art and lust. The older the native gets, the better at art and probably the more lustful she will be. The health or chronic disease must also be taken into account, as well as other planets such as Mars, 3, is negative, as well as Jupiter, 5, is positive, will be helpful, etc. Rahu, 8, has domicile dignity and is conjoined with the ascendant. In the planet's context it implies indulgence, trickery, cunning, cheater and stocks. The older the native gets, the more cunning, clever and sly she becomes. If Jupiter, 5, is weak, it implies that the native is sly, tricky or manipulative. For stocks and shareholdings, it is recommended to own them in the long run. Rahu, 8, conjoined with the ascendant is considered very powerful even though the dignity is just normal. There is no planet that could hinder it from causing extreme indulgence. The native usually misbehaves herself during teenage years. Later on, the native will have a change of heart. However, if the planet has domicile dignity, this will be unlikely. Even the planet is in opposition with the ascendant, it will still be uncertain. This is easily observed by figuring if the native still likes gambling or something similar at an old age. If it is the case, then this behavior will be very hard to change and will likely persist. If the ascendant is in Aquarius and has Rahu, 8, astro-logic that is located in Scorpio as well as having exaltation dignity and unrelated to the ascendant, this will indicate indulgence to a lesser degree. Rahu is a planet that is difficult to understand since it has many details. There will be a special chapter dedicated to Rahu later on. 2.2 Planet with domicile dignity in other bhavas. In the planet's context, it will have similar effects as in the case of ascendant conjoined planets, which is already mentioned. Though the meanings of the planets have to be considered since they imply hidden talents and external factors for the native. The meanings of bhava have to be taken into account in order to predict the hidden talents, while the relations such as conjunction, opposition, sextile and trine have to be taken into account to know more about external factors as mentioned in the previous chapter. Examples: the Sun, 1, has domicile dignity in others bhava. In the planet's context it means honor, dignity and pride. In case it is not related to the ascendant, it will still have the same meanings, although these traits are not demonstrated. They are hidden traits. Saturn, 7, has domicile dignity in Mahana bhava. In the context of the planet and also as hidden talents, it implies consideration and deliberation. However, since it falls into Mahana bhava, it implies that the native takes too much time to ponder over things, but these thoughts are pretty much impractical. In case it falls into Vinashana bhava, it implies that the thoughts are usually not put into use or the native is overthinking but can still let go of the thoughts. She usually considers things carefully. In the context of external factors, it implies lands, gardening and farming. Even though it will become more stable later on, but Mahana will affect the outcome and turn it into losses without something in return. In case the planet falls into Aribhava, it will only indicate dislike, while in Vinashana it indicates depletion and impermanence. The self-planet's planetary power has to be in consideration in order to figure out in what manner the depletion occurs. Furthermore, the financial planet must also be checked if it is positive or not. It can play an important role to determine the outcome. This case is still better than Mahana bhava's case since the loss yields nothing in return. In addition, when the planet is not related to the ascendant, it implies that the business is productive but still not very appropriate for the native. Therefore, it may not be as successful as it should be. Rahu, 8, has domicile dignity in Mahana bhava. In the planet's context and also as hidden talents, it implies indulgence in something, shrewdness, cunning, sophistication and trickery. However, it falls into Mahana, which indicates that the native is very clever and cunning in general. Although sometimes she may lack these traits and become easily tricked. In case it falls into Aribhava or Vinashana bhava, this will occur in a lesser degree. In the context of external factors, it implies stocks, lotteries, and intoxicants. Although it is true that the income from these things will become more reliable in the end, they will be a total loss without something in return. In case the planet falls into Aribhava, it will only indicate dislike and disinterest, while Vinashana indicates exhaustion, depletion, and impermanence, but with something in return. Moreover, when the planet is not related to the ascendant, it implies that it is not appropriate for the native, so that it may not become as successful as it should be. In addition, if the native wants to trick someone, it would not be as successful still. This is the same for other planets. In other words, the prediction has to be done in clearly distinguished steps. There are still a lot of other meanings that the planets represent, such as minerals, organs, etc., as mentioned earlier. The dignity of the planet can also be included for the interpretation. In case there are conjoined planets, the meanings have to be interpreted by separating or combining their meanings. The importance of the relations has to be taken into account also according to the basis mentioned earlier. Please stay tuned for the upcoming episodes.